Hi, Bjorn. Yeah, no sound because I haven't actually officially started yet, but you should be able to hear me now. Just give me a moment. Um, just waiting to make sure that the Facebook kicks in. Seems like it did. So I'll do my normal sound check like I normally do every week, and then we'll get started. Good to know. It looks like Facebook is functional. Don't see anybody chatting there, but it looks like it works. If anybody wants to give the thumbs up, that'd be great. Okay, looks like we got the thumbs up. Okay, so one second, gentlemen. Okay, so I will have some guys from Hansa Coin here later today. There's a few questions I think that popped up on Reddit, and if there's anybody here that wants to ask a question of them, they'll join me in the AMA section, which will probably start around 5:35, 5:40, 5:45, somewhere in that realm. And the Reddit question, there is one or two Reddit questions I think that pertain to Hansa Coin, so you should start answering those in the next 15 minutes once we get through these news topics. Okay, so as I do most weeks, first of all, I'm Kevin Merkel, CEO here at CoinMetro. Thanks everybody for stopping by. If you haven't been with us before, we have a bit of a schedule we follow here. First thing I do is I cover some news topics that were curated on Reddit over the last week by members from our Telegram community. And then I go on to some Reddit questions that were also posted throughout the week, again, curated by our guys here and also our team of elites, guys from Telegram that generally contribute almost every week to these two pieces of information. And then we move on usually to a quick update, depending on the time we have, and then we go right into the Ask Me Anything. So as I mentioned, I'm going to have two guys here from Hansa Coin, Axel and Chris, who will help answer any questions that may pertain to Hansa Coin, given that there was a bit of a commotion about Hansa Coin this week on our Telegram as well as on their own. Before I get into the news, just so that people who are joining us for the first time know what Hansa Coin is, I'm not going to explain the project, but Hansa Coin, I basically helped in setting up a token structure that has gotten preliminary approval from the EFSA, the regulator here in Estonia, that allows to tokenize hard assets. And at some point in the future, we hope that it will allow for underlying yield to be paid back to these token holders by way of bonus tokens, also approved by the FSA. That hasn't happened yet, but it's in progress. Okay, I'm going to jump into the news so we can get started here and not waste too much time. First news topic, I have 10 news topics this week. First news topic, crypto hedge funds are reaching record levels this year. This doesn't come as too much surprise to me. Most people do believe that things are generally cyclical. And then most investors, obviously, most retail investors buy at highs, unfortunately. But when you start to get your more experienced retail investors, they always look, obviously, to buy on low and sell on highs. So that the fact that the crypto market has fallen and that we're sitting on lows that we haven't seen in, I guess ages when you talk about crypto years, but in crypto time, but in reality, that we haven't seen since last year, and seeing what happened in Q4 of last year, people tend to think these things repeat themselves for no other good reason than, they think they repeat themselves. So lots of hedge funds are taking advantage of that. Lots of very small hedge funds in comparison to, let's say, their grown-up brothers have taken advantage of that in order to basically bring on new clients and new money and new investors. So it doesn't surprise me that there's growth. If we don't see that fantastic Q4 like we saw last year or anything close to it, and we go through the next year with lower volatility and not much movement, I don't expect this trend to continue, meaning that I don't expect a super growth in the amount of new funds. That's not to say that the funds that are there won't be able to turn a profit, but I wouldn't expect to see more and more new funds coming out if we don't see any repeat of what we saw last year, which I doubt we will see. So we will see how this carries on into 2019, especially towards the end of the year. Number 2 on a list of 10, Google ad reveals search giant's feelings on Bitcoin and crypto. So Google released a little video, little ad that basically poked fun at the electricity costs of mining. So, there's a lot of smart people at Google. I think they truly understand that blockchain doesn't, proof of work, et cetera, proof of stake, all these current protocols that exist right now, where some may be resource heavy. Obviously, these are first iterations, and that's probably not going to be the blockchain of the future when it comes to heavy amounts of transactions, et cetera. So they're poking a bit of fun, and I think they're taking advantage of the fact that most people don't understand or really have the vision to see what's going to happen in the future. But at the end of the day, thumbs up to Google for having a bit of a sense of humor. I don't think that's really their true feeling. I guarantee you Google's probably investing more money than any of us have in our front pockets right now on blockchain technology. So they can kind of giggle all they want, but at the end of the day, I'm sure they're going to throw some money at it and already have. 3 on the list of 10, crypto exchange YoBit starts pump and dump scheme on random coins. So I actually posted a response to this very news article on LinkedIn, and my response was something along the lines of they should add a jail time calculator to each of their pump and dump schemes, and so people can take guesses on how much jail time the people behind it will receive at some point in the near future. This is really bad for the industry as a whole. There's no real democratic or diplomatic way to say this, so when you have fucking idiots that run around and do whatever they want, they do really dumb shit. And this is definitely, you can put this on the dumb shit category. It's stupid. They obviously don't know what they're doing. They obviously don't have experience in a regulated market. If they did, they wouldn't do this. I'm assuming they're a bunch of giggly kids driving Lamborghinis thinking life is awesome. The day they crash that Lamborghini and get arrested with a few joints and get thrown in jail, I think things will change. So thumbs down for YoBit. Terrible for the industry, terrible because it gets news coverage. That news coverage is then seen, obviously, by regulators, banks, and everyone else in the industry that is already frowning and believes the mistruths that get put out by, let's say, the Bank of International Settlement and some other reports that have come out in the recent past, and this doesn't help. So anybody, if anybody knows anybody at YoBit, when you see them, slap them for me. And hopefully they'll stop doing this and we can maybe move into a more mature market. Either way, markets normally they filter themselves out. So even immature markets have a filter, and that filter grows with time. So these guys won't exist down the road. So we just have to wait for that to happen. Hopefully it happens fast. Number 4 on a list of 10, a war-torn country in Syria will use crypto to power an anarchist state. I don't even know where to start on this one. But again, not really good news, to be honest, when it comes to, it's a use case, I guess. So everybody who cries that there's no use cases, Mr. Ethereum over there crying about no use cases, well, here you go, use case, anarchist state, great. So definitely a use case for Bitcoin, I guess, or crypto in general. But again, when we're talking about trying to see mass adoption and trying to get naysayers to agree that there's actually a future here, having news come out where somebody is like really hyped about the fact that they're going to help an anarchist state power their, think of it this way, right? So when you're on the side of the anarchists, you think this is great. When there's some type of revolt and you don't believe in the government at hand, people always side with the revolt, and whatever the revolution does, they think it's great. Obviously, if the revolution wins, then they write the history books and everything's fine. But think about it this way. If you're living in a country, let's say the US, UK, whatever, and there happens to be, 10 guys in the UK that hate the UK and hate the government, decide to do a revolution and start killing politicians, and they fund themselves with Bitcoin, and they lose, what do you think history says about Bitcoin? This is not a good thing. Whether they win or lose, it's definitely not something you want to see in the news, especially when you're trying to push mass adoption, as I said. So I don't really know what to comment on this other than the fact that I wish it wasn't in the news. Now, let's put it that way. Number 5 on the list of 10, crypto industry on brink of implosion, researcher says. So for every 3-cent researcher you can find, I can find 10 more. So brink of implosion, that's great. So he cites a few things in the article. I briefed through it very fast before we came on live here. One was about the fact that, there was, 3.7 billion worth of transactions or something. I don't remember the numbers, but transaction volume has fallen and the amount of transactions has fallen. Yeah, well, the value has fallen. So obviously the transaction value in euros or dollars has fallen. You could be a 4-year-old with a shitty calculator to figure that one out. On the other side, you're talking about a cyclical demand. Cyclical demand happens in every market. If we were to analyze markets based on last year was better than this year, well, most markets in the world wouldn't exist anymore, because usually last year, most of the time, was better than this year. That's kind of how markets work. unless you get to a year that was better than last year. But that doesn't happen every year. It couldn't. It's impossible. You can't have a better year every year. That just doesn't happen. That doesn't mean you can't see growth. But when you're just looking at a very, let's say, very small focal point, the amount of transactions, it's ridiculous. Anyway, the word researcher is probably like the word expert in the crypto industry, I guess. Everybody's an expert. You look on LinkedIn and every unemployed jackass is an expert in something that has to do with crypto, whether they're, I don't know, the next ICO phenomenon advisor or whatever. So I would say that it's the blink of implosion. I wouldn't agree with that. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if I thought it was going to implode. But that's not to say that, look, it's a volatile market. So there's going to be periods of volatility. There's going to be periods where everybody thinks it's going to, quote unquote, the moon. And there's going to be periods where everybody's talking about how Bitcoin's going to, or crypto is going to be worthless. And that's because most people don't know what they're talking about. And we can all call them researchers now. So they now have a new title. So now when you talk to somebody and they have no idea what they're talking about, say, oh, I didn't know you were a researcher. Congratulations. Number 6 on a list of 10, PayPal for crypto. Up to 25,000 online stores in Germany may accept digital money. Okay, so I have a problem with this. First, they call it digital money. No. And I actually had a conversation about this in my office today with our head of liquidity and I forget titles. People have really cool titles nowadays. I kind of forget what the actual title is, but his name is Kert, and we had a talk about it. And the thing is this, is that, there's this, Backed, which is talking about IBM and Starbucks, and they want to basically use, create a platform for cryptocurrency so you can, buy your Starbucks with a Bitcoin, because obviously, what else are you going to do with your Bitcoin besides buy really expensive lattes with it? The use case that Bitcoin can be used as a transactional form of payment has already been proven, I think, since the first transaction was made. We don't need to prove that one. And anybody that holds Bitcoin that actually knows its value isn't going to go to Starbucks and buy a coffee with it. And anyone that doesn't know Bitcoin or doesn't know how to use it or generally doesn't believe in it is not going to automatically buy one to go buy a Starbucks when they can use their debit card, credit card, cash, Starbucks card, whatever. Nobody's going to walk into Starbucks and say, dude, I got this belly button lint and I really want a coffee. Can you take it? Please. No, nobody does that. No, so it's not a use case. It's just to get publicity. A lot of things happen here just for PR. It's a PR stunt. That's great. I could care less, and so could everyone else if Bitcoin is accepted at Starbucks. If you're excited about that, you have no idea what Bitcoin is, and you shouldn't be using it. It shouldn't excite you in any way, shape, or form. That doesn't lead to mass adoption. Starbucks accepted, unless Starbucks didn't accept anything else but Bitcoin and forced you to buy Bitcoin when you walked into Starbucks, that would probably push some adoption. But they're not going to do that. Why? Because, they'd go out of business in about 3 weeks because they wouldn't be able to pay their employees because no one would come in to buy coffees with Bitcoin. So this is kind of another story like that. Look, the use case, we can pay for shit with crypto, already proven. It was proven a long time ago. We don't need to prove that one. 25,000 stores, yeah, great. Who cares? I guarantee you they accept credit cards and debit cards as well, right? So they don't need to accept crypto. I guess it looks kind of nice in the headlines, and people that don't really know what they're talking about are going to go on Facebook and LinkedIn and retweet it and hashtag it and whatever. But no news here. Like it's kind of a worthless headline, to be quite honest. Number 7, Omniasigo, OMG. I'm not going to pronounce it right. Staff receiving death threats. So I actually clicked on this one just to get some background so I could actually talk about it, and it leads to a Twitter post that said they removed their team from their website, I guess because they were getting death threats. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about this one. I don't know how this is really news. I mean, anyway. I guess it's news. Look, if I got a death threat, which I probably have, to be honest, I have a lot of weird messages on Telegram. I don't read them all. Sometimes I read the first 3 sentences and look at the guy's avatar, and he's called, like, I'm going to kill your grandmother or something, and I just don't read it. So I probably do have a few of them. People, when they have the shroud of the internet in front of them, will say anything. But if they're face-to-face with you, they'll be your best friend, right? That's just kind of how the internet works. So I think they may be overstepping a bit here. I don't know what kind of death threats. Maybe they actually got legitimate death threats. Who knows? But if you're already getting legitimate death threats, taking your picture off a website probably won't stop you getting death threats. So hopefully they have some other methodology of how they're going to deal with that. But anyway, hopefully they stop getting death threats, I guess. That's all I can say. Number 8 on a list of 10, Bitfinex banking partner HSBC, will it last? So I didn't know about this one. So HSBC. So Bitfinex has had, just like every business, I guess, in crypto up to this point, has had banking issues and woes ever since they started. They famously had a Wells Fargo issue back 2016, 17. And I think it was Wells Fargo through correspondent banking was just blocking all payments to Bitfinex. Unfortunately, correspondent banks can do whatever they want. There's basically a line in the contract that says we can do whatever we want. I mean, it's a little better worded than that, but that's essentially what it says. So then they basically can give you, when you ask them, why did you block this payment? They can go, because of clause 7, we can do whatever we want. And Bitfinex, I did think they did try to sue, or are currently suing Wells Fargo. Good luck with that. Money well spent. But HSBC, well, HSBC has a colorful history of dealing with all types of industries and all types of different types of money. I guess they're not as prolific as our friends Danske Bank over the course, but still, I guess maybe on par. So look, it's good news that HSBC is actually even contemplating banking such a large entity in the crypto industry that probably has a little bit of ghost skeletons in the closet. So on that side, it's good news. How long can it last? Well, HSBC probably put them through quite a test to onboard them, though I did read that it's through their private banking channel. So that could mean they have an HSBC account in Labuan, which obviously is not the same thing as having an HSBC account in London. And even if you have it in London and it's through their private banking arm, it's not the same thing as being in the commercial or the retail bank. So I don't know the full story, can't make a full comment. What I will say, though, is that HSBC across the world has franchises. Franchises might be the wrong word, but just so you understand exactly what it means. For instance, in Mexico, it's owned by Banco Internacional, something that used to own a bank called Vital, and they rebranded it HSBC. Not really HSBC, but it's kind of like a hotel that puts the name Hilton out front. They pay for the name, Hilton gets a piece of the pie, Hilton maybe runs the back office, but that's it. So remains to be seen what HSBC means in this context. Though, if I had a bank, if CoinMetro had a bank account on HSBC, we'd probably get a press release out about it too. So thumbs up to Bitfinex for that. Hopefully, they didn't lose all their money with Noble Bank. I thought most of that could have been just rumors, but bankruptcy filings for Noble Bank. So lots of crypto companies had. I've read reports upwards of billions. With Noble Bank. Don't know if those numbers are accurate, but shitstorm a coming. Let's put it that way. I'm pretty sure this news feed here in the next couple of weeks is going to have a lot of Noble Bank written on it. Number 10 out of 10 here for the news, and then we'll get on to our Reddit questions. Regulations in the UK could take another 2 years, says expert. Okay, another expert on the panel today. Right, he's right. I mean, or she, whatever, is definitely right. The full brunt of regulation will probably take longer than 2 years. There are pieces of crypto regulation. It's not just like saying regulating, derivatives. When you say regulating crypto, you're literally talking about like 27 asset classes just by saying crypto, because you're talking about ICOs, you're talking about ICOs that may give debt, they may give equity, they may give this, they may give that, they may be asset-backed, they may not be. And then you move into exchanges, which aren't really exchanges, but brokers, and you're moving into derivatives and securities and all types of different, synthetic securities, anyway. So there's lots of different regulations that need to happen. I think most people are waiting on ICO regulation. It's one of the first they're trying to tackle. And tradable assets. So I think that's going to happen way before 2 years, at least the initial push. But yeah, 2, 3, 4 years, it might take 5 to get every single piece of the infrastructure that crypto is going to find new use cases. So they're going to find new regulation they need. It's not going to be something that happens day to day, but it's a bit misleading saying it's going to take 2 years, as in there's going to be no regulation for 2 years. That's not going to happen. I know for a fact that the FCA is already sandboxing. I don't know how many different pieces of regulation. Brexit's coming. Whether it's a hard Brexit, soft Brexit, middle soft, hard boiled, I don't know, whatever. At the end of the day, they want to maintain themselves as the financial hub of the world. And if there's some money that they can grab in crypto, they're going to grab it. Okay, moving on to Reddit questions here. Let's see what we got. Okay. All right, so we have a total of 8 questions. I'm going to scan through here, guys, real quick just to see if we have something pertaining to Hansa Coin, and we'll probably jump into that first. a second. Some of these are a little long-winded here. Oh, wait a minute. I remember reading one. Somebody might have forgot to put this into my curated list here. Hold on. All right, that's not it. Okay, all right. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to breeze through these as fast as possible. We're going to jump in the AMA, and then I'm going to have somebody check Reddit for the other question. Number one here on our list, any updates on whether or not we're able to participate in the upcoming flash sale using fiat? If so, will we be able to fund our accounts prior to the flash sales that were locked or loaded when flash sale opens? When will the chat rooms be available? When moon? Nice third question there. It's probably the best one out of three, I guess. So, upcoming flash sale in fiat? Probably not. Why? Flash sale will be hosted by the same country that we hosted our initial sale, which is Hong Kong. We do not have licensing in Hong Kong to accept fiat. Now, we could have a service agreement between CoinMetro, Estonia, and Hong Kong. Caveat there is that right now, with our banking partner here, we need to actually get each token passed by their vetting team. And right now, they're not even letting quote-unquote utility tokens pass because, like I've been saying for months now, the EFSA here in Estonia, and pretty much everywhere else in the world, no matter what they tell you, even if it's a utility token, all tokens are securities, which means you can be a utility token security, but you're still a security. So right now, that would be almost impossible. Now, that doesn't mean in a month it might change, because it could. But as of right now, fiat probably will be off the table. When will chat rooms be available? Probably before the exchange goes live, I would say beginning December, late November, we will push that community aspect into the platform so that it's actually functional. When moon, when you buy a rocket ship and you give me a ticket, I will come with you to the moon. How's that? Number two, Johnny Dixon. I remember you stating earlier this year, day one, top 5 listed, 1 month, top 10, blah, 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 blah. Hunter, do you still stand by this comment? I would. I just mentioned that banking has changed a bit from vetting every token to right now not wanting to list any tokens. That's our main banking partner right now, which means we need to adhere a bit to what they say. Unfortunately, like I said previously, banks do whatever they want. So you can tack that up to clause number 7. We do whatever we want. And we need to abide by those rules. We are in talks with 2 other banking partners in Germany that don't have these specific rule sets around how they their money flows, which means money flow to tokens can go through those banks, not our banking partner in Estonia, and the Estonian bank is fine with that. But we need to set up those relationships first. So if those relationships are in place, yes, I would stick by those numbers. If they're not, that's going to mean that we're basically going to only be able to list non-ICO blockchain-based assets. That means things like NEO we could list. But the funny thing about that is Ethereum did an ICO. I guess people forget about that. But we're able to list Ethereum, so you figure that one out. But things like NEO, things like EO, well, not EOS, they went through an ICO process. Anyway, coins or tokens that are created but don't go through ICO, we'd have no problem with. We are fighting, obviously, to get this as fast as possible so we can list other options. We are also going for an MTF license, multilateral trading facility, which means we can list anything we want. But those things will take time. So we'll have to see. Ask me that question again in a month, and we'll see what the changes are. Number 3, CoinMetro fan. Now, just before I say this, CoinMetro fan, this is the real CoinMetro fan, because there's another guy that calls himself CoinMetro fan that is NK complete, let the children leave the room, asshole. And if he's watching, how you doing? So CoinMetro fan, what is the minimum number of XCM required to qualify for the top tier of the airdrop family? Right now we're thinking about over 50,000 euro in value. So day one, that would mean 750,000 XCM, roughly. That may change, because basically what we want to do is that we incentivize. At that level, there's a 20% discount attached. Then above that, your ratio starts to actually apply to the airdrop, the family airdrop. We may adjust that, though. It's not set in stone. Number 4, Robin Timmerman. You dropped the bombshell of the CM wallets being coupled to their own unique IBAN numbers. Can you talk a bit more about what was required from CM to make this happen? Regulations, you need to conform bank. Okay, so first iteration of this is actually through a banking partner. So we basically we use a white label based on their banking license. So it's still CoinMetro's IBAN connected to your account, but it's on the platform of a bank with a banking license. So we actually need no license to make that happen. What we needed was a bunch of experienced, old, balding fat guys to go into a room with a couple other bald, balding fat guys and a couple young guys and explain what we do And they went, all right, so you're not like all the other guys in crypto. Yeah, we can work together. That was pretty much what it took. We're still in negotiations on pricing because the one bad thing about old, fat, balding white guys is we like to charge lots of money for services. So we're still kind of going back and forth so that we can wring that out a bit, get them back to startup reality. But we're close. And we have to iron out a few things about jurisdictions because obviously passporting and things like that. But so actually initially, no licenses are required on our side. That doesn't mean, though, that we won't be applying for licenses. EMI licenses, etc., will be applied for. We're just kind of looking to see where we do that. Most people are running to Lithuania to do that. There's a reason. I'm not sure I want to go to Lithuania, just like most people are running to Malta for crypto companies. And I wouldn't run to Malta. I wouldn't even swim there. So I guess you'd have to swim unless they built a bridge. I don't know. Which they might now. Binance might be financing a Malta bridge. We should ask. Number 5, Lucky Charm 2. Hello, Kevin. Some exchanges lately have adopted a strategy where tokens will compete in a voting competition in order to be listed on the exchanges. The premise is that your vote will count more if you hold a higher number of XCM. It's a great way of free marketing for the exchange by word of mouth because all the projects do announce this on their own Telegram channel. It may be a great thing for marketing, but it's horrible when you look at regulations and vetting processes. Unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but not everybody who holds XCM is qualified enough to look at a project and understand if it should be listed from a regulatory perspective. So if we allow anybody with a few tokens to make a vote and then just stick to that vote, we'll probably end up in some hot water from both the regulators and the government. So what we could do is pre-vet on our side. Once vetted, you guys vote if you actually want it on the exchange. That's another thing, and that's something that we've talked about internally. It may happen. Hasn't really been too much talk about this yet, but it's possible that it could happen. Also, the demand for XCM increases because of the competition and the voting. Not so much. We have some modeling that we've been working on. Lots of modeling that shows that if you just look at volume based on trend. Now, remember, every transaction that happens on the exchange, that fee is getting purchased in XCM, or the fee is getting converted to XCM. That means that unlike any other exchange that exists, as the actual volumes go up, immediately the actual XCM demand goes up. It goes up in parallel. But still, we need to reach about 30 billion in volume to really see, monthly volume, to really see an effect on the underlying supply versus what's needed to cover those fees. And that's above 15 euro cents. Now, you can look at something like Binance, who went up to whatever, $30, I think, $30 US at some point last year, and they weren't even close to that amount of volume. That's because it was all speculative buying. So we can't calculate what the speculation is going to be. But what I can tell you is from pure supply and demand, you need to have a lot of movement to have any effect. Even with a low number of tokens, like 300 million, for example, that are in circulation, you need a lot of actual movement to affect that supply and demand. It's not, so voting wouldn't make a dent, I don't think. Number 2, could you please share with us the partnership with HansaCoin? Oh, here we go. I must have missed this when I was, for us XCM holders, is there any discount to get their token? Thanks for the great work. Okay, so we do have a bit of a HansaCoin question. So I have in the room with me Axel and Chris, so I can start off by answering this. Maybe they can give a brief overview as well, but the partnership. So essentially, Chris reached out to me on LinkedIn. That was how it first started. I had a look at the project. I had a look at what they were doing. They basically ran into a bit of a roadblock when it came to thinking about ways of having to structure the actual token, mainly for regulatory reasons, trying to figure out how it could pass, what the best way to do it was. Token economics, let's say. That was kind of my role. I went in there, I helped with that. We whiteboarded, we had a bunch of meetings. Obviously, outside of that, up to this point, there's been some advisory for sure, but the project itself, the groundwork for the project was already laid. So the real estate itself, the project itself was already done, and I really had no hand in that. That was all HansaCoin, all the really nice info memo and everything. Yeah, I didn't play much of a role there. As far as the discount for the tokens, that hasn't been weighed yet. The thing is that you're talking about an asset-backed token, and we're not talking about a token that's just based on air, like most every other token. I mean, even our own token, and I hate to say this, but when you create 300, 500 million tokens out of thin air, there's nothing backing that. What's backing that is the idea which obviously a great idea, though, could be basically worthless in the real world. Great ideas don't have any value until someone actually does something with them, which obviously we're doing. So when you do that, discounts are easy to apply because you're creating something you're selling literally out of thin air. It's easy to discount it. However, when you're creating something where the assets that roll in or the funds that roll in from contributors actually need to go somewhere specific to fund a specific project that actually backs the value of the token, there's a bit of a difference. But there may be a possibility. To be honest, they've been raising funds. The company behind her, the asset holders, have been raising funds to do real estate projects for quite some time. They have experience doing this. They have a list of people that have basically invested with them before, and there's been some quite amount of interest since they made a few phone calls. Well, I shouldn't say a few, since they made lots of phone calls over the past 72 hours or so. So right now, what's going to happen is that it's converted into basically a private sale at first. And there may not be a need for a public sale once the private sale is concluded. If there is a need for a private sale to open it up, then I guess there might be a possibility. I don't think they're closing the door to discounts. Right now, there's no discount available. That doesn't mean there won't be in the future. But yeah, I'll ask you guys want to come in and make a comment, statement? I'll bring Chris. Chris is going to come in.
Yeah,
this.
I think you have to sit.
Shall we sit or stand?
We have to.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this so we can.
That's a pretty good camera.
Yeah, it's not bad. So we have Chris to my immediate, I guess, left. Axel halfway out of the screen. So yeah, I'll let them make a comment. Obviously, they'll be here for the AMA as well. So if you guys have a live question, we'll jump on those as well. Feel free, guys.
All right, it's great to be here, Axel, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us on your panel today. It's a lot of fun. This has been I think it's one of the great projects that I've embarked on, and I've been first mover in many different spaces. Back in 1994, I think I was in the first 2,000 websites that were launched. It was one of 12 investment advisory websites. There were only 12 back then. Imagine now there's what, 100,000? And it was a lot of fun because the overhead in those days was $20 a month, and we were getting $90 checks by the bushels. I was in grad school. I was working on my PhD, and it was a lot of fun to be able to share in the acceleration of great technology that has brought so many people together. I think that blockchain is even potentially greater than the internet. I got word and wind of Bitcoin in 2012, but I didn't wake up until early 2013. It was still trading in the low teens. I bought my first Bitcoin then, and then I got involved with some very notable names, including some interesting meetings in London where I was living with Vitalik Buterin and Ethereum. And then from there, I just continued to spread my wings. And then I found myself in Estonia this past summer, and I was fortunate enough to cross paths with some very interesting individuals. One is sitting to my left here, Axel, and we put our heads together and we decided this is a great opportunity to take his platform and marry it with the blockchain. His family, actually I should let him speak about his family is quite extraordinary. They've been involved in real estate build out for many centuries. I think they were, I might have the date wrong here, but as early as 1420 they were involved in helping
vampires
design the...
For the fun guys, vampires.
Let's keep the stride. Every generation has to make its own impact, and I think that's the rule for us. I mean, our predecessors have done some decent work and hard work. If we fail with what we do, we fail. So we have to be rather conservative. And I've always said this to Kevin the first time, right? We're the boring people. Mm-hmm. So we have to work hard. We have to work hard every day, and in order to structure our transactions. So the basis for what we are currently discussing has been laid with a partner of mine 3.5 years ago. And we exchanged what was beforehand a project into another project, and we had to work on the basis of not knowing quite yet whether the development which we believed made sense would actually, despite it looking good, we liked the place, we knew the place for a long time, whether we could actually get it done. And with friends, family and the likes, we took upon the challenge to do that, as we tend to do. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't. And in this instance, unfortunately, we managed to get to the point that we now have one project at hand, which is live, which works, which has up to 214 units which can be built. And after 3.5 years, that is where you would want to be. But then again, you still have to build it. At the same time, raising funds through friends and family, we discussed this on our page and in the white paper and all the things which we've created over the past couple of months. There's an equity gap for construction finance, typically, and that equity gap you can fill with friends and family to a certain extent. You can try to raise it through funds and the likes, but this equity gap happens to hover in the range between 1.5 and 10 million euros. There is various regulatory impacts on these matters. They have been tightened, respectively sharpened over the past couple of years. Some could call them more bureaucratic than we want them to be, but they are as they are. So you never change the market, you are in the market. And our task has been, over the past weeks and months, to make sure that when we marry proper assets with what is the crypto space, that we present something which may, with one small, solid project, become a valuable template. And I think that's where the real interest lies. If we can now build, by means of the software and hardware and platform infrastructure development which we're undertaking, we're very, very fortunate that Kevin and his boards have done so much work already to build their exchange, their platform, their systems. So we're actually benefiting from the fact that it exists. Otherwise, we would not be doing this. Otherwise, we'd be doing what we're doing in small interim steps, gradually, or we would be doing it in a different fashion with different partners, or we would have to sell the project. That is not necessarily the best use of our time, having invested so much ourselves over the last 3.5 years. And we have a number of these projects. We co-own some of these projects. Some are in an advanced stage, others are coming. So if you plan a pipeline, and if you want to accelerate this, even if you assign all those tasks which are in the underlying project to parties who are very professional, good project managers, external project managers, people who, if they fail, you can, have a decent look at and ask them to rectify it. But you don't have to, because normally they are extremely professional. You try to work with the top tier in your market. You do the same thing for engineering. You do it for every little function, like in every good project financing. That is boring business, I know, and nobody here wants to hear it, but I have to say it nevertheless when we get to know each other, because you have to understand where we're coming from. So marrying what is this exciting world of crypto assets now being a little bit under pressure, and as Chris often says, if something is under pressure in your portfolio, why don't you sell half? Why don't you try to hedge a bit? We thought, this is, February, March this year, where we considered that asset-backed structures would make sense. These discussions have been floating around and I've been following this, but we didn't have the right group of people together. That has changed, and with that, this summer we undertook this venture because obviously it is an alternative which, if you don't have the right people, if you don't have the right team, if you don't have the right platform, you would never ever take the risk to do so.
I'm going to pop in to see if anybody's asking any questions, just to... here's a nice. So we have Tim, who obviously let's see if we actually have a real question here before we jump into Mr. Tim. I'm just right now, guys. I'm just going to see if we have anything related to Hansa coins. I'm just skimming through. If we don't, then I will jump back into my normal. So yeah, we have Tim. That's I guess likes the word scammer 5 or 6 times here on the. I think Axel just addressed this a bit in what he just said. Yeah, no real question. So let me just bring back here so we can actually see everybody. So I'm going to address it just real quickly because obviously, armchair quarterbacking is what it is. Look, guys, people, I think first of all, people don't do any real research. Going onto a website, making 3 clicks, and looking at some outdated information that may be on some public registry somewhere is not research. If it was, like I said, we'd all be researchers. So yes, Tim, you're a researcher. You can add that to your title, I guess. whatever your other title. I'm sure you're a doctor or something as well, so you can add a researcher. Point is that, you know, if you want to make an acquisition, you get the word I'm trying to go for. Then please come with some facts, and they'll be addressed. And this was addressed on Reddit. I'll let Axel explain a little bit because it was already addressed. I think it was even added to an FAQ document that they put out. But I'll let Axel give you the full story.
Yeah, well, obviously we work in different fields and we have different investments in different companies. And in some companies, you from time to time have to part ways with either frustrated employees or with parties who you have been dealing with. And that is something which ends up in litigation from time to time. It ends up in court even. And we have had the opportunity to embark on a number of ventures, and we're quite happy with them as such. I mean, we would not have been where we are now in one of our investments had we not invested a lot of work with a number of people who we can trust. So, and if somebody is there who works for you, doesn't deliver the work, doesn't perform, you from time to time have to part ways. We've had frustrated employees in our retail ventures many, many moons ago. And fortunately, together with my partner, Torah Trust, you will have read it about, we've actually turned this thing around at that point in time. These were investments of other people. We turned them around, we packaged them, and we sold them off. In the meantime, if you run, for example, shopping center investments or retail investments, you will probably know, or you will be aware of, or you can imagine at least, that if there is a couple of hundred employees and different lessees and a couple of suppliers and construction, that not everyone is always happy and not everyone is always up to standard and to snuff. Yeah. That doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. Of course, we all make, and I'm sure I've done my fair share of it, but if somebody comes, as you just said earlier, with various CoinMetro fan impersonations, if somebody comes, hey Nielsa, if somebody comes...
My daughter making a guest appearance.
Some shape or form unhappy, they either come to your face and you can discuss it, you can organize it, you can, if need be, dispute it. But often you end up having to litigate it. So we litigate about tax, we litigate about projects. That happens. It's part of what real estate is.
I would just say that in the real world, in real business, especially private equity, when you deal with large amounts of money from relatively small amounts of people, things can happen where things need to go to litigation. They can be this a very small thing. Imagine if in the ICO space right now we had the ability to go to litigation. You know how many of these ICOs that are successful, quote unquote, would be just in a litany of litigation and underwater by I don't know how many claims? I would say 90% of them. The fact is that, yeah, when you deal with 10 parties that may be dealing in a project that's worth millions, and one party has a problem with one other person, those personal things can lead to issues. I've been in issues in the real business world before many times. They might not be, available on the internet somewhere. If they were, I'm sure our friend Tim, researcher Tim, would have found them. But that's life. And I'll bring up a quote. I think it's Timothy Watson. Maybe somebody here will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Timothy Watson. And basically the quote, it's not verbatim, but basically says, if you want to see more success, double your failure rate. There you go. Sometimes in life, there's no path to success without failure. Anybody who tells you that they got to success without failure is either lying or they just got really, really extremely, lucky. Failure is how you learn. I mean, that's the best way to learn because trust me, somebody who had success right out of the gate probably failed the second time. That's for sure, but doesn't really understand what success is until you fail. Anyway, I've had a lot of failures myself, so that's just the way it is. You can't get to a certain age and have a certain amount of success without having a certain amount of failures. I'm sure, I know everybody sitting in this room could probably talk about a few failures, and everybody who's over a certain age, especially on any of these chats, could do the same thing. I guarantee it. Whether they want to is something else. But
I think it's also fair enough. Non scrivet, non existat. What is not written doesn't exist. Yeah. We have, whenever a question has come to us in whatever form in the past couple of days, and we've had substantial interest in what we're doing together here, but whenever there was a question, we've addressed it, and we'll be happy to do so. If, Tim, you have a question, please shoot it across. We'll be happy to deal with it, and we've actually already done so.
Let's see really quick if... no. Oh. Okay, yeah, so I don't actually see a question. So I'm going to jump back into some CoinMetro related questions. If you guys want to just maybe say parting ways. And just one more thing, guys. We're going to schedule a panel discussion probably about asset-backed tokens on the blockchain and the future of blockchain, blockchain assets. I don't know the exact date. I think maybe Thursday next week. I was thinking Tuesday, but I think it might be a bit. I'm going to be in Luxembourg on Tuesday, so
depends on your travel schedule.
So we're probably going to schedule something. It'll be announced on Hansacoin's Telegram channel, which is t.me/Hansacoin. I'll be taking part. Chris and Axel I will be there as well. There may be some other people from the supervisory board that'll take part. And we'll just have an open panel discussion. I'm going to ask these guys to open up a Reddit like we usually do, so you guys can post some questions, some real questions. If you have anything that you really want answered, it'll get answered, and then we'll open it up like an AMA. So I think Thursday, probably next week, sounds good to me. Friday, obviously, we do our own AMA, so we don't want to do them both on the same day. Or I don't want to do them both on the same day. I don't know. We collectively, I don't know, but I don't. So probably Thursday, but be on the lookout for that because the announcement will be made probably sometime today or tomorrow.
All right. Good. Pleasure. All right.
Okay.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm going to jump back in here and catch the rest of these Reddit questions, and then we'll get back into the final piece of the AMA here. We shouldn't have too many left. I think there might be 3 or 4 questions. Yeah, just 3 or 4, so it should be pretty fast. Let's see. Okay, so on to number 6 here, Matt's a boss. One of the primary use cases for Bitcoin is a savings instrument for people who opt out of fiat. How will CM cater to that use? Revolut has their vault where they round up transactions to the nearest whole number. The difference is used to buy crypto. Do you have any similar ideas or plans for CM? Has your opinion of crypto changed since CM's inception? So yeah, the vault option. So we have something like a dust converter that we've talked about. So when you have small amounts of either fiat or small amounts of crypto that you cannot exchange because they're to the 5th decimal place, you can just click a button and all that dust can get converted to whatever you want, whether it's XCM, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's whatever. Instituting something like that through our debit card program would definitely be possible, meaning we could round up. We haven't yet talked about that yet because we're waiting to see exactly which banking partner we go to basically put together the infrastructure for the debit card and the IBAN accounts. Once we do, then we can talk to them on a technical level. But yes, it's something we thought about, and I think it's actually a really cool idea. So we'll see how we do it. We want to do it a bit different, obviously. I don't want to just follow in the footsteps of Revolut. So we'll see exactly how we can mold that into the system. And has my opinion changed? Because of CoinMetro specifically, no. I think anybody that's been around can always. I've always been talking about regulation. I've always said it's been coming. I always said that we're going to see some changes. They're now actually starting to happen. You can actually see some people starting to listen to me, which is nice. So view of crypto in general, no. Crypto community, yeah, it's changed a bit. At first, I thought there was a bit more flexibility in the community. And still, there's a lot of guys at the top or a lot of guys that are known to be, let's say, elites within the crypto community that definitely aren't flexible. And definitely need to still kind of wake up and smell the coffee or the roses or whatever. They need to smell something. So I think it's not surprising, but I didn't necessarily have the insight to be able to have an opinion on that. And now I have a bit more insight. So, but opinion on crypto in general, no, it hasn't changed. Not really. I think though my opinions are starting to become more normalized. Meaning that people other than me are actually starting to have the similar opinions to me, where my opinions might have been frowned upon, let's say, a year ago. Number 7 on this, so after this we have one more, then we'll do the quick AMA questions, we'll get a few in. Number 7, why does our Estonian website for our billboard campaign, I can't pronounce it, I'm going to try though. So in a couple of years when maybe I speak some Estonian, everybody can come back and laugh at this. You can probably laugh at it now if you speak Estonian, but cryptopialinestiesi.ee, which is something like crypto something or other. Say that your project will launch in 2019 spring. To me, it looks like there are tons more delays coming, but you are again not telling the investors in large letters the project straight up how it is. So you are again lying. That wasn't in capitals for some reason, but to us again in capitals. You should have put lying in capitals, by the way. It would have put more emphasis on your point. But it's not a lie. If you read it, and it's actually in English, so I don't know what the excuse would be here that you didn't read it. It's the full suite of products. That means ETCF, TAM, That means everything mentioned in the white paper live, launched in public. And yes, that's spring 2019. It doesn't say anything about just launching of specific products. So not a lie. And to be honest, again, a lot of people, I think, need to kind of figure out what the definition of lying is. When you set a date 11 months before you get to a point where you're actually developing the product and you miss the date, that's not a lie. But anyway, it's the full product suite. That's what it actually says it. So you go back and read it again, and then if you still don't understand, send me another message and we'll talk about it. Last question on Reddit. Hi Kevin and CM team. Although 6 questions in one, so this guy really got his Mr. Diligent Techie got his fill on this one. So good on for him. Loving the expansion into podcasting. Yeah, it's actually right now just these AMAs that are my great guy Alex in marketing kind of splices and makes into a podcast. But I'll take credit for it if you want to give it to me. Thanks. Do you plan to continue this? Yes. Actually, at some point, these AMAs will become a podcast. I'd like to actually bring in, have frequent people that come in that aren't just myself, so you don't see my face every freaking week, every Friday, because I'm pretty sure, I know I'd get, after seeing my bald, sometimes bearded face, after 5 or 6 times, I'd probably stop tuning in. So whoever's actually been here since the first AMA, hats off, seriously. So yeah, I think eventually it will become a podcast. So yes, we will continue. Does the CM team get on well? Do you all socialize together? Actually, we do. We get on quite well. I hate to say this, but outside of work, I don't socialize with people at work. It's not because I don't like them, but for me, at least in my professional career, work is work, and social is social. That doesn't mean when I'm talking about work, I mean my actual the people I count on in my work that need to know that I'm an authority figure in the office. We have little events every now and again, but no, we don't necessarily socialize out of work. I'm sure they do. I don't. But inside of work, yes, we get along really well. There's definitely I would say a great work atmosphere. So everybody kind of understands everybody. Lots of laughs float around the office. Everybody kind of shares the same sense of humor. So yeah, definitely we get along. Number 3, what's your favorite thing about living in Estonia? That's a good question. I really like Estonia. So the first time I ever came here was when I came here to kind of see if CoinMetro could be established here. Unlike many Americans, I think I actually knew what Estonia was and where it was on the map. Geography in the U.S. is not, let's say, not a particular subject that most people have any sense of, knowledge in. But I did know where Estonia was. Never been here, but I was here for the first time. What I would say, it's a very unique place. I like that there's about 1 degree of separation between everyone here. When you need to get something done or you want to get introduced to somebody, you literally make one phone call. Like you could literally call, go to the supermarket and ask the cashier lady, and probably within 1 or 2 steps, you'll get to whoever you need to get to, which I find quite amazing, and it's quite nice. I generally like the people here. I lived in Mexico for 18 years. There's a lot of in-your-face people are very polite, but as soon as you turn your back, they're not. And here it's kind of, everybody puts on a very, let's say, no emotions on the face, but very easy to get along with once you actually start talking to somebody, which I kind of like. And it's like living in a big city wrapped inside a small town. So far so good. I've been here about 10 months. I've lived in a lot of places for short amounts of time, 1, 2 months, 3 months around the world. And usually after about 4 or 5 weeks, you tend to start literally noting in your head everything you hate about where you're living. So when you went there on vacation for a week or 2, everything was great. And then when you were there 3 weeks, you're like, this. Then you start having a list. I don't really have a list yet here. I might have a few things about the EFSA that I don't really appreciate up to this point. But other than that, everything's hunky-dory. I think I don't really have a list yet. So that's a good sign. 10 months, no list. Number 4, what is the least thing you like about? To be honest, I really don't have one yet, and it's not like propaganda. I just don't really have one yet. I guess the weather. If I had to pick one, the weather, right? Though I do like having 4 seasons again. In Mexico, you have 1 season, hot as hell, and I guess you have wet and dry. Maybe I don't know if you want to call that a season. I like having seasons, and generally, I literally go to work and home most of the time. So when it's cold out, I can look at the snow. It looks really nice. I don't go outside, so it doesn't bother me. So yeah, I guess the weather. We can say the weather. Do you think CM will ever move his headquarters? No, I don't. I think that we will have different pieces of the business in different places of the world where it makes sense strategically. So at some point, maybe in London, we put our banking compliance, etc. Maybe at some point we have, but moving the headquarters, no. I think we established here. I want to remain here. Look, if the finance minister and the EFSA decide not to move and a year and a half passes and nothing's happened and every other state in the EU has some type of glamorous crypto laws on the books, then we might need to think about putting different pieces of our business elsewhere. But as it stands right now, there is no plan to move the headquarters elsewhere. And I don't think it will be needed, to be quite honest. Headquarters used to mean something, 20, 30 years ago, headquarters meant something much different than what it means now. Headquarters is kind of like the heart of your operation. And I think because we started in Estonia, it's where we're going to grab our first profits and our first revenue. I think that for that reason only, it's going to remain our headquarters. Will the XCM holders be able to have a tour of the office one day? Well, you guys can come anytime you want. I guess there was a story about somebody who came here one day, like rang the bell and nobody opened the door. And that was at like 1 p.m. one day and half the office was at lunch. And I don't open the door, to be quiet. I wasn't even here that day, I was traveling. But if the doorbell rings and nobody gets it, I don't get up to get it unless I'm not doing anything, which normally throughout the day I'm usually doing something. So, but yeah, tour, we actually do plan to have some type of events here where we'll open the doors, scheduled event. We'll have like some type of maybe 30-minute little presentation and then some drinks, cocktails, etc. We're planning to do some of those probably starting at the end of this year and then into next year. We may do one maybe even quarterly. So yeah, for sure. We can't fit every XCM lunatic inside the CoinMetro offices. It's not that big, but we could fit at least 100 of you guys. So sure, answer to that one. All right, I'm going to jump into our live questions here. Okay, so I'm going to go on Facebook first. When will XCM be minted and administered and distributed? Wait a minute. And distributed. Okay, sorry. To holders. So, as a utility token, meaning the only real reason the token is minted is because it has a utility, which is actually the functionality of the platform. There is absolutely no reason to mint that token until the platform is ready. If we do that, we would actually be in violation of Regulation D in the United States, as well as several probably other regulations around the world, because we would literally only be doing it for speculative reasons. As the plan right now is that 2 to 3 days before the token or the platform is to launch, we will mint. And then distribution will happen exactly when the platform is available, which would be, let's say, 3 days after this. That is the plan, and I think we're going to stick to that. Right now, we have a tentative date, and I'm going to say tentative again because it hasn't been released to the public. But again, I always say this, sometimes I'm transparent to a fault. I'm sure I'll get a bunch of Telegram messages after this, and my marketing guys and my techs will come on Telegram and on Slack and just be like, what did you do? Now I can't sleep at 3 a.m. because CoinMetro fan is breaking down my door to ask me about a date. I don't know. But December 10th right now is the date we have tentatively for when the platform is going to be fully, all 3 platforms will be ready to go 100% live to the public. So if that were to happen, that would mean December 7th we would mint, December 10th we would distribute, just to give you an idea. Stephen Crocker, on Facebook. Will ICOs like this interact with exchange by holding XCM? Like what? I guess, okay. Will there be an XCM Hansa coin pairing down the line? I'm excited, I guess, to have ICOs use the CoinMetro platform personally. Theoretically, I would love to have XCM or any other token paired with any other asset because it's just giving an additional pairing for our traders to trade. However, if I put my market cap on, that was stupid. If I put my hat on that says the market guy on it, how's that? Probably not initially. Why? Well, we'd have 2 illiquid assets paired to one another. And that just means volatility. The chart would look like Swiss cheese. I mean, you literally have like one dot here, and then the next price point would be, 8 USD away or something, or whatever. It wouldn't look pretty. So probably not initially. Once there's some type of underwriting, essentially inside of that, inside of the ICO space, then that becomes a bit more of a possibility, and maybe one day we'll be doing some of that underwriting, but at least initially, no. Okay, hold on. This box is really small, so I'm losing something. How I say it. Will ICOs interact with the exchange by using holding XCM? Well, XCM will still be a payment method that will be available in the future to ICOs that happen on the ICO Express platform, meaning that we can price those tokens in XCM. And that XCM holders will get discounts. There is a plan that XCM holders will get discounts to pre-sales for all ICO, not all ICOs, but ICOs that launch with pre-sale discounts. That's still part of the plan. Hansacoin is the first use case, first test case of the ICO platform. It's obviously, I guess they're nice enough to be kind of a guinea pig because obviously it's the first case and we're making changes as we go. And they don't necessarily at this time offer discounts. But had they done so, then they would have been offered. So and they may still do so. So we'll have to see how that works out. Still on Facebook, when the sale will start. I don't know who you're talking about. If you're talking about Hansacoin or if you're talking about CoinMetro, CoinMetro's sale is done and over with. We do have we will possibly do another flash sale before minting happens. Still not agreed upon internally whether we're going to do that. I haven't made a decision. If you're talking about Hansacoin, the sale did start. However, right now it's transitioning into a private sale because there's been demand basically from private equity and phone calls made by the staff staff and the founders basically through partners that they've dealt with before on real estate projects in the past. The fact that these sums are much larger, let's say, than your average ICO contributor, it looks like that perhaps maybe the public sale won't be needed. However, if one is needed, it will be announced. So there will be a press release that's going out today, so it's going to explain a bit more. It'll also be posted inside of their Telegram channel, so stay tuned for that. Obviously, there's a KYC process for Hanscoin. Will there be need to do KYC for future ICOs? Will the CM family be exempt from this? The plan is to have one KYC for everyone, that's for sure. That's not instituted yet. There's no, let's say, single KYC option. That's why Hansacoin was required to do so, though it was done through a new partnership with Verif, which is an KYC processing solution, which is much agile than the one that we had initially, that we did all on our own on our side. But yes, that is the plan, to have, once you're KYC'd on the CoinMetro platform, you're KYC'd on the CoinMetro platform. You no longer need to do it. Only if, let's say, you continue to invest in ICOs or contribute to ICOs in a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years pass, and you haven't, your passport expires, for example, then you'll need to do it again. You'll get a little, let's say, a little alert that you need to go through KYC again. Lee Silvestre also on Facebook. I'm going to jump to YouTube after this one, guys. When will be trading and withdrawal be possible? Because it anyway say soon. How soon? How soon is that soon? Okay. So Lee, trading and withdrawal. I assume you withdraw of your XCM tokens once they're minted and distributed. Well, I just gave a date. Tentative date right now is December 10th. Trading and withdraw live. Now, trading will happen live to anyone in the beta before December 10th. So we'll have to see how that works out. But for now, to open to the public, you're looking at December 10th. Let's see. Okay, so YouTube here, guys. Forget to take your medication, CMF. Maybe. Who is Natalia on YouTube? Who is CoinMetro's competitors in Estonia? There's a few companies that have acquired the similar licensing that we have in Estonia. Though I do know some inside information here about changes that are coming from the finance minister, because we helped actually comment on the draft. That some of these companies that are only basically acquiring licensing and have no actual foundation in Estonia will probably lose them soon, and I think that's a vast majority of the companies that have already acquired the license. There's a few of note. I think Mothership seems to be, at least topically, I can't say that I've dug in, but they look like a decent setup. Paxful, though Paxful is more peer-to-peer, and they've been around quite some time, though their operations, I guess, have moved, I think, or maybe even sales has moved. I don't know exactly which has moved. There's a few others, though I don't recall the names off the top of my head, that have gone through ICO. Again, some of these have Estonian addresses but have no substantive presence in Estonia, so they may end up losing those licenses at some point. We'll have to see. But I don't, for everything that we're covering in our use case, our business case, I don't think we have competitors, because you have to basically combine 3 or 4 or 5 different businesses that maybe currently exist in this country to get up to the point where you're covering our entire use case, our entire business case. So it's a hard question to answer. I'd almost have to say none. Even though that might sound a bit egotistical, I think that's probably the most accurate answer. Bjorn, what is the function of Hansacoin? Why does it need a specific token? So Hansacoin is, you have to think of it as it's a structure. It's a tokenized structure. It's a platform. It's basically a module, let's say, of the ICO Express that will allow assets to tokenize themselves. And once full regulatory approval is received, it would mean that they could actually pay underlying yield back to token holders at some point without underneath a token structure, which allows for easier transferability, easier transaction monitoring, et cetera, and cross-border transactions, meaning that people can invest, let's say, in real estate or in some other type of hard asset over borders without having to go through any type of onerous broker-dealer relationship, for example. So Hansacoin in itself is a platform. The first use case of the Hansacoin is a project brought by Tiska, which is a partner with Hansacoin, which is a real estate project. But the specific, let's say, use case is actually a platform for assets to be placed on the blockchain. What is the status of the Smart App mentioned in the email update September 21st? I don't have a immediate update on that, but if you ask this question on Reddit, if you could, next week, I'll make sure you have an update. I know it's being worked on. I think we were waiting on approval, in the App Store, to be honest, and some APIs. So APIs from the back end. So the Smart App itself is completed. I know there were APIs that we're waiting to connect to, and those APIs were being created. I don't know if they've completed. We had a bit of other work that came onto that came to us over the past few days, so I don't know if those have been completed, but I'll get an update. I'll get on Telegram if I can, and I'll post the update there. But if you can ask it on Reddit, that means next week I'll definitely get to it. Still on YouTube. What are your thoughts from Vlad T on traditional market going down for the past few days? Is that a signal of a mini 2008-like event? No, I think I don't think it has anything to do. Markets swing for many different reasons, whether they be politically motivated, whether they be geopolitically motivated, and this is probably geopolitical for the most part. You're talking about a market in the Dow and the U.S. and the Nasdaq that have gone up, historic levels over the past 2 years. The fact that they need to retrace a bit doesn't really mean much to me, to be honest. People like to make a big deal out of these things, but it's cyclical. You'll find drops like this after every major small bull run over the course. So I think it's just normal. I don't think it's a signal of a mini 2008 event. Another, crashes and times when the market kind of, let's say, reestablishes itself. These are cyclical things. These are going to happen. And yes, if I look at my clock, I do think that we're getting into a position where we're probably going to see another market reset. Though I don't think this is the start of that yet, but we will see. Yes. On the point above, a lot of people claim that Bitcoin BTC is the digital gold. Yet the past few days, gold went up slightly and Bitcoin declined. So what is your opinion on that? Well, you can't, just because they call it the gold. The reason why they call it the gold of crypto is that it's kind of the, when in the market, first of all, it's a first mover, I guess. Gold was kind of one of the first intrinsic assets, hard assets, that people kind of put money into. Not one of the, well, it's definitely not the first, but it's one of the first. It's one of the most well-known, let's put it that way. But the reason why it's called the gold of crypto is that, well, when kind of volatility starts going everywhere, Bitcoin's kind of where everybody runs, and it holds the liquidity. But you can't then take that comparison and then say, well, they should move in tandem. Like if gold goes up 10 cents, Bitcoin should go up 10 cents. There's no correlation between the value of gold and the value of Bitcoin. It's just a way to kind of classify the people who don't understand crypto assets, to kind of give them an idea of what it is. The fact that gold goes up, gold is definitely more correlated to other types of assets. Currencies like Australian dollar, for example, is definitely what we would call what we would call like an asset currency, basically where when gold moves, because there's a lot of mining that happens in Australia, the Australian dollar usually moves. They don't move in tandem; they move against each other. That's why Australian dollar's down to 2.53 year lows, and gold is inching higher. So that kind of makes sense. But you can't correlate the two 1-to-1. It just doesn't make any sense. Kunal Patini also on YouTube. We will do the smart app for the December 10th. Okay, appreciate that. Does this include the CoinMetro debit card launch? Well, debit card for December 10th, don't know yet. I would suspect it depends on who we choose. Some processes are longer than others. We will be making that choice hopefully within this month, and then we'll know more of a timeline. I would hope so, but it may not happen. If it doesn't happen by December 15th, unfortunately, then you get on vacation, banks go on vacation, etc., and then you're into January. Fergus Courtney also on YouTube saying global depression due dollar needs to crash. Yeah, global depression, not quite sure that's accurate. Dollar doesn't necessarily need to crash, but look, the dollar is the world's currency. No matter if you hate it or love it, that's what it is, which means, yes, if there is any type of global macroeconomic downsizing or fall, the dollar will fall. That is for sure. Matt, you think crypto folks are interested in tokenized real estate? Seems to me crypto people want more riskier investments. I am assuming these private investments. Yeah, you're right. They will be at some point, because crypto people, normal people, will become more crypto people once crypto assets are more widely used. It should say blockchain-based assets. I think saying crypto assets, people automatically assume Bitcoin. Blockchain-based assets, I think, will become more of the norm, and then you're going to get a mix. For now, yeah, you're right. But that doesn't mean that, somebody needs to start the ball rolling. Whether it's Hansacoin or whether it's somebody else, somebody needs to get out there and show people that the blockchain actually has use cases, and that one of those use cases is putting assets on the blockchain, and the reason why that's actually a good thing. So whether that starts now or later, you're right that right now the interest in the crypto community is, to the moon, rather than I want a structuredized portfolio that can actually bring me, yield in the future. But that changes. And to be honest, young investors, which most people in crypto, at least at this point, are young investors. Young investors usually want risk. Older investors usually look for other things. Jesse, also on YouTube. Sorry, I just jumped in. If I participate in the Hansacoin ICO, do I put my money in the platform or the project they are tokenizing? It could be both. It depends on the amount of funds raised. The Hansacoin guys are still here, but they're in the other room. I'll have one of them come back shortly here, right after I answer a few more questions and get on that question for you. Alex on Facebook. You know an exchange named Swipex that has Estonian e-trading licenses, and what do you think about Nils Gorberg, who runs DAG-based coin? Coming from this, what do you think about DAG? Well, I don't know Swipex, so I can't comment on them. What I can say is, we're in Estonia physically, and we came here because they were the first movers, not because we thought the license was the best license in the world. We just saw the potential that they were the first movers, and we do think there's potential here to help the regulator create regulation that raises the bar, that filters a lot of the nonsense out, and where we can thrive. That's why we're here. But we're here. We're physically here. I physically moved here with my family. We're physically hiring people. I don't know Swipex where they are. I'm not saying they aren't, because I don't know. A lot of companies, though, that get these licenses is because it's low-hanging fruit. It's relatively easy to get, doesn't cost much money, and now they can say they're licensed. And I hope that ends. So we've been helping the finance minister with their draft of changes to the anti-money laundering law that currently governs the FIU licenses to make sure that there's a substantive presence either here in Estonia or in the EU, or that those licenses will be revoked. And I hope that does make its way through Parliament, get voted on, and get approved, because it's going to help filter out. I think a lot of people are getting these licenses for the wrong reason, and that's unfortunate. But the license was just too easy to get, unfortunately. So direct acrylic graph. To be honest, I haven't looked too much at it. I have other things that I'm focused on right now. I think it's interesting. I don't think I've yet seen a real use case where it really makes sense. Though the tech is interesting, what's behind it is interesting. Can't say much more than that at this point. But but I'll try to have a look, and then next week if you ask again, I'll give you a bit better opinion on what I think. But yeah, from the Estonia point of view, if the finance minister happens to be watching, or anybody watching, we've had this discussion. I've been very open about it. The licenses that are here right now are too easy to achieve, and that needs to change. 100% needs to change, and there needs to be other requirements that are required from ongoing business so that the government can be sure that the business is run correctly. Right now, there's minimal oversight in what currently exists under those FIU licenses. Fergus, any opinion on Dexon? I think that says Dexon. And their claims on 1 million transactions per second using block lattice. I've heard a lot of people claim 1 million transactions per second. I haven't necessarily heard of these guys off the top of my head. I hear a lot of claims. People claim a lot of things until it's actually outside in the real world, functioning in a real world use case. I have nothing to say about it really, because I think anybody in a sandbox environment, it's not that difficult to create something that can work fast. Even Node.js in a stripped down sandbox can do, I don't know, 1 million transactions a second or something as far as a messaging protocol, but it's never going to do that in real life. Even with minimal messaging, even on a minimal messaging protocol system, it's not going to do 1 million messages a second. It's just not. Until I see a use case, there's really no comment to be made, because who cares? If there has been, and I'm not talking about they just have it running, like I said, in a sandbox and you can see it actually functioning and it says it did 1 million transactions. That's great. But real world stresses are what show you what a technology can really do. And when you stick real world stresses behind it, real world networks and nodes, and all the, we're building, it's kind of like we're building all this, or we're trying to build all this really cool innovative tech on the back of, computing systems that are not that innovative. So at some point, we need to innovate on the structure before we innovate on top of it. You have to innovate the protocol before you can innovate the app. Fergus, thanks for all your opinions. I don't know if that was sarcastic, because I guess maybe I didn't give that many, but you're welcome nonetheless. Okay, guys, any other questions that want to roll in? I can grab the Hans Coin guy again if you want clarity on. Clarity on the project. I think I answered them pretty well. I didn't mean for this to turn into a Hans Coin AMA, but that's okay. Jason Stevenson, is the Hans Coin related to just one asset-backed project or multiple projects, multiple ICOs? It's a platform. So the first step in Hans Coin is to create the platform for asset-backed tokens. So that platform will then be used as part of a module on the ICO Express for any asset, any asset that wants to tokenize itself. So yes, it will be used for multiple. Even Hansacoin as a business has multiple real estate projects, some that include fractional ownership and other things that they have envisioned to put on this platform. But it will be used for other assets. So it doesn't just mean that it's for them. They're building a platform. So step one is the platform. That's what the VPAT, the Virtual Project Access Token, is for, is to fund the platform. Once the platform is funded, additional funds, once licensing is required, that is needed to actually push out legally a token, what would be considered a security. Again, no matter what kind of token you have, it is a security. It could be a utility token, but all tokens are securities. And that's pretty much what most government officials think around the world. There are some that are trying to instill, that have guidelines. And even Estonia has guidelines on token types. You can have a utility token or you can have a security token, but all tokens are securities. That's the main the point. I think people need to understand that before they go down the road of tokenizing anything. Okay, guys, we're coming up on 6:30. Anything else somebody has to ask before we call it a day? Hopefully, I felt this AMA was pretty good. I like that the Hansacoin guys were here. Thanks to Chris and Axel for coming by and spending some time with us. Like I said, there'll be a scheduled panel on asset-backed tokens on the blockchain, or asset-backed tokens on the blockchain. It's been a long day, guys. But there will be an announcement for a panel. I will sit in on it probably Thursday next week, 3 or 4 guys from the Hansacoin side, and their supervisory board will be there. So it'll be about Hansacoin, but it'll also be about just a general idea of what the project's about, what the platform's about, why it's a use case, why it makes sense, etc. And then just generally what kind of assets can be put on the blockchain, how current regulations deal with that type of stuff, all that good stuff. So it should be pretty. It should be a pretty fun panel. So if you guys want to stop by, please do. It'll be announced on Hansacoin's Telegram, which is t.me/Hansacoin, or just look for Hansacoin inside your Telegram app. Anything else, guys? Okay, guys, I'm gonna call that a day then. Thanks to everybody. Have a great Friday afternoon. Spend some time with family and friends over the weekend. Don't look at the Ethereum price again, please. Don't look at it again till Monday. And yeah, guys, have a great weekend. If I missed any questions, I apologize. I was trying to scroll on this small screen today. And no problem, Jesse. And thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and listen to me babble on for an hour and a half. Thank you, Matt. Same to you. And yep, see you guys next week. I will jump on a Telegram a bit later. There was something I was supposed to update on Telegram. The update about the app, smart app. So if I have any further information, I'll post it on Telegram as well later today. Okay, guys. No problem, Alex. Thank you for spending time with us. See you guys next week. Thank you, Carlos. Keep it up on Telegram, man. Good job.